I'm sure you've heard about functions and wondered what are functions in Python. Well, you're in luck because it's day 35 and I would be introducing you to functions. You'll learn about arguments, parameters, how to return a function, how to define a function, and how to call a function. Let's start. Welcome to day 35 of the 100 Days Python Programming. We're in day 35, and have I got something interesting for you? It is Python functions. Python functions are so important in programming because they allow you to be able to structure your code and to make your code more readable, more manageable, and it also prevents you from making repetition because functions create reusable code that you can use in other places in your application rather than making repetition. So for the next couple of days, we'll talk about functions and we'll build a small project using functions. So what are examples of functions? You might ask, how do you create a function? You create a function by using the keyword dev, def, dev. And then you have your function name. My function name here is great. And followed by parentheses, you have to add parentheses or it is not a function. And then a colon. So dev, your function name, parentheses, and a colon. And then when you want to write what you want your function to do, you have to be careful about the indentation. It has to be perfectly indented. And then we would want it to print hello. So we have successfully created a function. This is a function, but it won't really do anything because we haven't called the function. So we move to the next part of our tutorial where we are able to define our function, which is what we have done earlier, followed by our function name and then our parentheses. But now, how do we make the function work, you might ask? That is the very next thing we'll talk about. We have defined the function. Now, how do we make it work? We make it work by calling the function. Let me show you how you would call it. Still using our function greet. This is how I would call my function. I'd have greet and then my parentheses. And when I run it, it's print out hello. So now you've learned how to define a function by this. And what do we want our function to do? We want it to print hello. Then how do we make the function work? We make it work by calling the function. So by calling our function name and then it prints out hello. The next thing that we'll talk about is parameters and arguments. What are parameters, you might ask? Parameters are placeholder that you define in the function. So in our brackets, here in our brackets of the function, we have nothing. But what if you want to have something there? Then then that would be your parameters. If you have parameters, then you would have arguments because parameters is what is in the bracket when you define the function, and argument is what is in the parentheses when you call the function. So let me show you an example. Imagine we have a function, not even imagine, we're going to have a function that add numbers. And what numbers do we want to add? We want to add two numbers. So my parameters would be A, comma B, because that is the two numbers I would like to add. Do not forget your column. And then what do I want it to do? I want to return, we'll talk about return shortly. Ignore that for now. So A plus B, this is the operation that I would like to do. I would like to add A and B. So we have our function. This is our parameters. I want to get two numbers and then add them together. So if I want to now call my function, my add numbers function, I then have to pass arguments. So I want to add 5 and 3. And then when I run this, I should get 8. And there we have it, we get 8. So I've been able to pass parameters and then arguments. And now you're wondering, what is this return statement? Return statement allows you to return a value from a function. By adding the return, I want this value, I'm returning it to the function. So when I call it, I want to still make use of that value. Let me show you another example. Imagine we want to get the square of numbers. So this is square. So I want to get the square of one number. So my parameter is number. Do not forget the column. Let me take this up. And then what operation do I want to perform? I want to be able to return number multiply by number. And then when I call my function, I'll have square and then 2. This is the argument I'm passing. And when I run this, I get 4. Return statements are important in your function because they allow you to send a result or value back to the part of the code where the function was called. And this makes your code more flexible and reusable. So without a return statement, the function will run its code, but you would not be able to get any output from it to use elsewhere. So depending on what you want to achieve, if you want your code to be reusable, then you need a return statement. But if you don't want it, then instead of return, we might just use a print and then it would print out the results. So that's it for this very short tutorial. We talked about functions, we talked about why they're important, which I showed you how to define a function and then how to add parameters and arguments and also return statements. Thank you so much for watching that video. I hope you were able to learn something from it. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And don't forget to also try the practice questions that are in the Jupyter notebook and put your solutions in the comment section. Let's build a community together. As always, the link to that notebook is in the description below, and I'll see you tomorrow.